Welcome to episode 21 of Edges and Sledges. Today I'm your host Ashwin. I'm here in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm joined by my co-bloggers Varun in Singapore and DJ in London. Hey guys, thanks for joining. It's been a busy couple of weeks in cricket, busy past week in particular with the wrap up of the first India-England test match. So we're going to jump straight in with that and do a quick debrief today of the first test match, do a quick preview of the second test match. There's some interesting things happening in the world of cricket outside the actual field, which is with Ben Stokes' trial. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then finally, if we have a little bit of time left, I have a simple quiz for you guys. But let's start by jumping right into the first test match wrap up. Quickly, what happened is England won the toss and chose to bat first. Although Kohli, did say he would have bowled first, so that's something I want to ask you guys about later. But England put 287 on the board. India then came back, hit 274. So, thanks to a brilliant Kohli century, England then made 180, leaving India a target of 194. And unfortunately, they fell 31 runs short. So, DJ, let me start with you. Good test match. Only went to four days or 3 and a bit days. But overall, thoughts on the test match? Pretty good advertisement for test cricket, you'd say?
Yeah, great advertisement for test cricket. Unlike the other series we've seen recently where the home team completely dominates the visiting team, and we've seen 4-0 in the Ashes to Australia. In Australia, we've seen India beat everyone almost at home convincingly. It was a refreshing change to see a well-contested, evenly contested test match between two teams. Obviously, we'll come to the argument whether it was England versus Kohli later, but it was just great to watch, and it kept everybody interested and on the edge of their seat. So, if that doesn't revive interest in Test cricket, I'm not sure what will.
So you mentioned England versus Kohli. Varun, let's jump in and talk a little bit about that. It seemed like there was a variety of different players from the English side who did well. I mean, who did okay, but really, really only one standout performance, at least from a batting standpoint, for the Indian side. Your thoughts or reactions to the first test in general?
I think lots of things to say, but firstly, I think it was not as close as it seemed on TV. So yes, I agree with DJ that it kind of revived the interest in Test cricket because of the way it played out. But it was only because of a masterclass by one man on day two, right? Apart from that, you think about it, England were far superior to us. I was personally very disappointed, very angry on day four and the morning after because I was just thinking nothing changes, right? We've been watching cricket for 25 years. Every time we go in saying, wow, this is the best batting lineup we have. And every time we fail. So much so that, even while planning my trip to go and watch the test matches, I told DJ that I'm not going to come for the first game because I know India is going to lose. And so I'll come for the second and third when they get their act together. So overall, I think disappointing, but not unexpected.
So let's just talk about that really quickly. So disappointing, but you said you said on a previous show, and based on what you just said too, India are slow starters. What do you think is the driver of that? Right? What do you think it is that India in long test series tend to be slow starters?
I used to think it's the fact that India starts off with the test series whenever they go on a tour, like to Australia, South Africa. The first test is their first interaction of a live game or an international game. But in this case, and so I used to put it down to acclimatization, spending enough time there, understanding the pitches. Here you've played six ODI and T20s cumulative. You've played a first class game as well. So I don't know, man. I really thought it was the fact that Test start first. I think it also comes down to confidence in the batsman and not adjusting well enough.
DJ, your take on that? Yes, there was one test match, but we've talked on the show before about how red ball and white ball cricket are different. Is that the reason India struggled a little in this, despite the ODI and T20 practice matches?
I actually have a different take to this from Varun. I think we're being a bit harsh on the Indian Test team. I think they competed well, which is more than other people have done of late. It is our tendency as Indian fans, having grown up through the 90s, watching India falter at the last hurdle. The instances that come to mind are Chennai, obviously against Pakistan. We've lost games in Bangalore. We've lost recently in Cape Town in the fourth innings in chases. We've lost in Galle against Sri Lanka. And it is our tendency to, I think, get very depressed very quickly. And that's because we have such high hopes and expectations of this team. At the end of the day, I think it is a lack of clarity in team selection. Dhawan playing test matches in England, I think we spoke about this in the last episode. It just, no, I can't understand why that's happened. And Cheteshwar Pujara, who spent time here playing the county game, sits out instead. So I'm sure we will debate more and more about what the selection should have been, what the batting lineup should look like, what the bowlers should look like, whether we play two spinners, etc., later in the show. But I think we've started a lot better than we have on other occasions in some ways. I mean, we've gone 1-0 down, but we were not completely annihilated or humiliated. In fact, we had a shot at winning the test match, a very good shot at that, and a shot that, I mean, with 50 runs to go and Kohli and Pandya at the crease, you would even say that India is a favourite until that ball from Ben Stokes. So I think it's not as dire as we think it is as yet, and it's a long series. It's a 5-match series. In the last series between these two teams in England, India actually won the test match at Lord's and lost the next 3 games. So I think a 5-test match series is very long, and I don't think England have got sufficient momentum to say that they hold the upper hand as yet. I think India will be hurting, and Indian fans like us will be hurting, but not all hope is lost if we can get the selection right in the next few games.
So let's dissect that a little bit. It's clear you guys have slightly different points of view. Varun, I'm going to start with you on the batting lineup. 6 batsmen plus Hardik Pandya. The highest score among all players, excluding Kohli, was 31. And that was made by our number 7, Hardik Pandya, who actually batted at number 8 in that innings. I mean, that's obviously not acceptable, right? What happened? What went wrong? And walk me through just from a batting standpoint. We'll talk bowlers later.
Yeah, so I think from a batting standpoint, I mean, I'll just give you my take on it, right? I agree Dhawan should not be playing in Test cricket in England, or I would say moving forward Test cricket at all, because there's really no point in being a hero, scoring runs at home, and then coming out and doing nothing. So Dhawan, I think, is the root cause of this entire lineup. I also think what's happening is, I think KL Rahul is struggling to understand what role he has to play, because he's coming off T20 and ODI cricket. He's trying to make up for the loss of Dhawan early. I don't know whether he's being told to show intent, but I think the first innings, the way he got out was silly, right? In his first, second, third ball, he tried to make runs and hit a boundary. So I think those are two fundamental issues that are happening. I think let's not forget that Virat Kohli was also dropped, and he made the most of it. But if that catch had been taken, this game we would have been annihilated. So kudos to Kohli for standing up. And honestly, I think biggest disappointment from my side was Ajinkya Rahane and Dinesh Karthik. We've spoken so much about them. Dinesh Karthik apparently was the highest test run scorer in 2007 series. So I can't pinpoint it, but it comes down to not putting your mind into the game, not remembering your basics, and I think it also comes down a little bit to not having the right team selection. I found out recently that Pujara is still number 6 on the ICC Test batsman ranking list, and to leave him out, it just doesn't make any sense.
So before we get into selection for the second test, DJ, you guys have both immediately started by singling out Dhawan. The magnitudes of this aren't great, but here's a fun fact for you. Vijay, Rahane, Rahul, and Karthik each scored less runs in the entire match than Dhawan scored in the first innings. Are we being too harsh?
I think it's the manner of his dismissals, which, along with, I think, Ajinkya Rahane really Dhawan was out twice, caught behind the wicket. In the first innings, he'd, I think, edged literally the ball before this, past third slip. And Sam Curran bowled the same ball again. Dhawan played the same shot again, and this time he was taken by Malan at second slip. He did the same thing in the second innings, where India has just lost a wicket. He goes chasing after a ball outside off stump again off Stuart Broad. And I mean, I found those two shots absolutely ridiculous, and it showed a lack of understanding of how Test match batting is, which I think, Varun, you pointed out. Kohli made the best of what he did, but what he also did was he weathered the storm when Anderson was bowling his 14th, 15th over, whatever it was. It was class bowling, and Kohli just left or blocked everything. He just survived. He just got through that period and yes, admittedly he was dropped, and David Malan may have made a match out of a game which we would have been humiliated in. But I mean, you could see what he was trying to do. He was trying to get through the tough period, because once you're through that, that's when you score your runs. And Dhawan doesn't seem to understand that, which frankly was very frustrating for me. Secondly, Ajinkya Rahane shots in both innings, and in the second innings, his shot selection was atrocious. It was, I can't think of another word for it. And for a man who's our best batsman overseas, averages over 50 outside India, his shot selection in the second innings was absolutely atrocious. In the first innings, I don't know what he was doing, but in the second innings, when you're chasing a small target and you're 3 wickets down, that shot, I mean, he should be out for that.
So, got it. I think that's very clear. We've talked a lot about some of the negatives. Let's talk for just a minute about the man in the middle, which was Virat Kohli. I mean, I mean, it was an incredibly special knock. I had nothing really I could say. I think the stat was he made 135 in 10 innings the last time he was in England, and he made 200 in 2 innings, one of which was 149 in the first inning. So, Varun, your reactions to that innings?
Yeah, I mean, I said I think it was a masterclass. I agree with DJ. I think what you could see was pure determination as Kohli was batting. Right, James Anderson was bowling a magical spell, but I think the key thing for me is Kohli had nothing to prove to anybody. He still came out and proved everyone wrong by hitting more runs in just this one game across versus the entire 2014 series. So I really think it was amazing. What I found great was that this is one of the first few times we've seen Kohli really bat with the tail, and it was amazing his ability to farm the strike, ability to take a single on literally the last ball of every over, and kudos to Ishant and Umesh who really backed him up there. Right? I mean, Ishant is now it's great. He's coming out and talking about about his own batting. So I think kudos to them, and Kohli was pure genius.
Yeah, I think the stat was Ishant made a county half century this summer, and so did Pujara. Pujara didn't really make many more than that. But yeah, I mean, I completely echo that. I think from my perspective, what was so special about the Kohli inning is exactly what you said, how he paced it, right? He had the patience to weather the Anderson storm, and then when he realized he needed to get some runs on the board, I think he made his final 90 runs off like 110 balls, that limited over style special that we know of Kohli while still farming the strike. It was just an incredible knock, I think, well deserved for that guy. A lot will be said about his ability to have won the game for India, and we know that as Indian fans all too well from watching Sachin in the 90s. But I think an incredible innings. DJ, with that, let me pick your brain about the Indian bowling really quick. We had three seamers with Hardik Pandya playing the fourth and Ashwin playing the spinner. Highlights from the Indian bowling standpoint this for the first test, and low points as well.
I think the high points definitely the form that Ashwin showed. Dismissing Cook twice in 2 innings, dismissing Joe Root in the second innings, dismissing Keating Jennings in the second innings, and Ashwin taking 4 wickets in the first innings. I mean, I think he'd taken 2 wickets in England, if I'm not wrong, and on the previous tour. And he hasn't had a great record overseas, apart from maybe the West Indies, where the wickets take turn. So Ashwin, I think, was the big standout for me. Bowled beautifully. I mean, he's got Cook's number, and I think England would be worried about their opening batsman. And well done to Kohli for bringing Ashwin on early. Ashwin also adds that kind of little bit at the lower order. Hopefully, he's going to come good later in the series. The disappointment for me was actually Umesh Yadav. And we'd spoken last week about how Nehra had said that Umesh needs to work on his line. And his line was really disappointing on day one, where there was a little bit in the wicket and he was too straight and kept getting hit away. And then he got too short and too wide. And again, he kept getting hit away. The surprise package for me was not Ishant, who I think we all expected to take wickets after his county stint, and he did so. And well done to him for that, because he's put the hard work in. Yes, he didn't get picked up in the IPL. He went and played county cricket. But the surprise package was Shami. And at times, Shami had looked disinterested in the South African tour. He had his fitness and his disciplinary issues and all of that stuff. But his spell, I think, actually broke the game open for India on day one, when Jennings was batting quite well. He got him played on and took another wicket after that. So Shami is a good sign for India. And I think if India do go and play a second spinner at Lords, which I don't think they will, I think the person to miss out will be Umesh rather than Shami, which I would have thought previously. So yes, highlights Ashwin and Ishant as well as Shami. So our bowling is looking stronger than our batting, surprisingly.
Yeah, I mean the stat I remember is the Indian bowlers have taken 20 wickets in every Test match since the beginning of the South Africa series. Right? I honestly, in my personal life, can't remember the last time that happened. We usually won tests because of batting and lost them because of bowling, and now it seems to be the opposite. Varun, let me ask a specific question on the bowling. In the first innings, Hardik Pandya bowled 10 overs, not for 46, so going at more than 4.5 runs an over in the Test match. And in the second innings, he didn't get the ball. Do you think that's crippling for the Indian side and for Kohli in particular as he thinks about bowling rotation and selection? And then, yeah, Pandya showed a little bit of fight with the bat, but does he really deserve his place in the side if he's playing as a specialist bat? Would we rather play four bowlers and have a specialist bat, or should he be trusted more with the ball?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good point, right? And I was personally very mixed about this because I think Pandya showed interesting resilience during the second innings with the bat, right? And I'll talk a little bit about the batting first. I think he put up a great fight with Kohli, but I think what disappointed me is that it was only while Kohli was at the other end. It was also very interesting to see, I think one of the commentators was there was a clip about Kohli and Pandya talking before the game, and he was kind of echoing or trying to imagine what Kohli would be saying to Pandya, and it was literally this that you know what, you have my 100% backing. I have backed you all the way. This is your time to come out and shine. Just bat with me, and the minute I get out, turn this into an ODI T20 mode and get those runs. And I think what happened is he did well for half. He batted very well with Kohli. But the minute Kohli got out, I was stunned as to what was happening, right? He was taking singles off the first and second ball. He was not trying to achieve the boundary. So I think that was shocking. Coming to the bowling, I think four test bowlers are going to get you the 20 wickets. So Pandya's kind of hanging somewhere in the lurch. I I personally I feel disappointed that Kohli can be so inconsistent with his team selection, yet so consistent with Hardik Pandya across all formats. It's disappointing to me.
So is that you saying you don't think he belongs in the Test 11?
Yeah, I don't think he deserves a spot.
Okay, so with that, second Test at Lords is coming up soon. Before we do a quick debrief of the English performance, I want to get your quick take on the what do you think the side or the 11 should look like for Lords. So DJ, let's start with you. We know the 11 that played at Edgbaston. Who's your 11, or rather, what are the differences or the changes you'd make in the side for the next test?
I think the one change I would make is drop Dhawan, get Cheteshwar Pujara in, send Rahul up the order to open with Vijay. Oh, the one person whose role hasn't really been scrutinized in all of this is Murli Vijay, and I actually can't remember the last time he scored runs. But I seem to remember it from last time in England that he scored 95, and he scored runs in Australia in 2014. But I can't really remember where he scored big runs outside the subcontinent after that. So maybe he'll be under a bit of pressure soon. But Pujara comes in at 3. Rahul goes up to open the batting. The rest of the lineup for me is the same. And I'll tell you why. Varun doesn't think that Pandya deserves a spot in the 11. And maybe there's an argument to be had for that. But the reason I think our batting is no longer winning us games is because our bowlers are getting us into positions with which we can win games in. If you know what I mean, we're taking the 20 wickets because we're playing 5 bowlers, and then we're almost a batsman light while chasing those runs. So we're in a bit of a catch-22 situation. So we need to work out how to win that game with the extra bowler. And there was a very interesting stat that Pandya has only bowled 61 overs. He's taken 3 wickets at an average of 70. So I agree, he isn't doing his job as a bowler. But I think he does enough with both bat and ball to justify a place in this 11. He brings the right balance to it. Because adding another batsman, I think, puts too much pressure on the 4 specialist bowlers. And given DK is a proper batsman, adding another bowler leaves us too light on the batting options. So I think Pandya gives us just enough of both. And so strangely enough, he would be my pick for Lords. Kuldeep would be the other suggestion I would make, but I don't think he will play. And the reason for that is it's been very hot in London over the last, I don't know, it feels like it's a relentless summer that's gone on forever, but I think the last 3 or 4 months. But it's rained tonight. and it's meant to cool down over the next few days. And there's a bit of green on the Lord's pitch, is what we're given to understand. So I don't think spin will play such a big part. So I think India will go with the same lineup that they had, with that one change, with Dhawan missing out and Cheteshwar Pujara coming in for him. That would be my selection.
So just the one change from DJ. Fun fact to just back up what you said. In 2014, when India played in England last, Vijay was India's highest run scorer. He made 402, picked up 250s and a century, which was 146. So I think they'll give him a couple of other shots just based on the track record from last time. Varun, anything to build on that? Same one change for you? Would you do anything different?
Yeah, no, to be honest, putting a very realistic hat on, I think it's going to be only the one change. I would love to see Kuldeep play, but if he plays, it means Pandya needs to step up, because they're not going to replace Pandya with Kuldeep, they'll replace Umesh with Kuldeep. So from a very realistic point of view, I agree with DJ. I think it's only going to be that one change. And I think it's important to, I think it's very crucial that change is not Rahul out for Pujara. I think it has to be Dhawan out, because now that you're showing trust in Rahul, you need to give him a certain number of games.
Yeah, I agree with that change. I think I would recommend that be the change as well. I don't know if I think Dhawan will give way. I have a bad feeling Rahul will give way, but I also feel like we should try two spinners at Lords, and then I'm going to stick to the point I made last time, which is not Kuldeep as a second, but Jadeja. So because really Jadeja, the way he bowls, doesn't matter what the pitch or the conditions are, he can extract. His ability to take wickets happens to be pretty much anywhere. So my hope is that Jadeja plays that second spinner role, but comes in for Umesh as well. Okay, we've been talking a lot about Pandya. DJ, let's talk about the English side. I don't want to get into too much detail on, because really there was no standout performances except from the young 20-year-old Sam Curran, who man of the match, but did well with both bat and ball. Joe Root's been talking about how they have Stokes and Curran, and we're struggling to find one Indian all-rounder who can either bat or bowl well enough. So your overall thoughts on Sam Curran?
Well, he reminds me of a certain curly-haired Indian left-arm seamer who could bat, made his debut in an Australia series in 2003. So I'm just trying to work out how we get Greg Chappell to coach the England team and destroy his career as well. But I mean, Sam Curran reminds me so much of Irfan Pathan, that beautiful swing into the right-hander, just wicket after wicket, and can hit the ball hard. It's like being transported back in time and watching an English version of Irfan Pathan. So I'm really excited actually to see this guy. He seems like a nice guy as well, unlike Ben Stokes, who we'll come to later. But he seemed like a nice guy. He's young, he's excited, he wants to play Test cricket. He's done really well. He's got the man of the match. And he turned the game in England's favour at 87 for 7. They were 100 runs ahead and they were looking down the barrel of defeat. And he gave them the opportunity to defend 194, which they did successfully. And he did take wickets in the second innings as well. So, I mean, he's got a great, exciting future ahead of him. So, I'm actually quite excited to see this guy, because he seems to be the breath of fresh air that Test cricket needs, and a decent bloke to back that up, unlike what England's been producing of late.
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. We talked about Alistair Cook a little bit already. Any other standouts from an England standpoint, or weak points you think that Kohli and his men should be looking at to exploit over the next little while?
I think Kohli and his guys did a great job in exploiting the middle order. So I think they need to just keep up the focus there. They keep up the pressure. What I do want to say is, I mean, Joe Root is a class batsman. So at some point he's going to come very good, and he already played well in the first test. So and I believe it's the same for Alistair Cook. So I think we bowled very well, but expect England to put a lot more focus on their batting to come. I also just want to say that Sam Curran, it's amazing how human psychology works. When you're so focused on Broad and Anderson, it was almost, I almost could see the writing on the wall that this guy is going to come in at first change and he's going to topple the entire lineup, right? Because he was so focused. And to be honest, I actually think the openers played out the two pace bowlers really well at the start.
Yeah, you're saying that about the ball, but even with the bat, I specifically remember when they were, I think, 80 something for 7, and you and I were messaging each other saying, I have a bad feeling now that Sam Curran with Adil Rashid are gonna to bring some fight to it, and that's unfortunately exactly what he did. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Guys, I think you've heard it from us. We expect one, maybe two, but most likely one change to the Lords match coming up. It's going to be a thrilling match. Starts this Thursday. DJ, just before we wrap, let's talk a little bit about Ben Stokes, because all in the news has been Ben Stokes. His trial has been going on, lots of publicity. Since you're our man nearest the scene in London, what's going on there? What is the overall feeling about the Stokes trial?
Well, so Ben Stokes is going to be missing the second Test match at Lord's, so I'm not sure who they're going to play instead. It might be Moeen Ali, unless they find somebody else to replace Ben Stokes. So that case has actually taken quite an interesting turn. If you remember earlier, it was claimed that Stokes was protecting a gay couple that was coming out of the nightclub, and that's how he got into the fight. What the prosecution has just said, apparently, is that he was actually taunting this homosexual couple while they were coming out of the club, and he offered the doorman a bribe, and he was derogatory towards the doorman. And so, I mean, obviously, that's the prosecution's version of things, but I mean, it's not looking good for Ben Stokes at the moment. And I mean, truth be told, I quite dislike the guy, and I dislike him even more since he got Kohli out in the fourth innings recently. He, if you remember, is the guy I said would take wickets as a third seamer. He took 4 in the second innings, which was really infuriating. And yeah, I mean,
So, DJ, what could be the result of the trial?
I think has got a maximum punishment of 5 years. I think, but I don't know. I mean, you don't. The judge may not give him 5 years, right? But I think it has a maximum punishment potentially of 5 years, or maybe 2 years. I can't remember now. But it's a significant time out of the game if he is convicted of it, and the other 2 are as well. So I mean, it's not looking good for the English all-rounder. I haven't really liked him. I mean, he's a world-class player, yes, but I mean, I don't like him as a person.
So Varun, quickly, we talked about I talked about how I think Stokes is not a world class seamer. I think I mentioned he was okay with the bat, but really, to me, watching the spell he bowled in that Indian second innings, he could have been a full time seamer in any of the top 10 squads in the World Series. So how much is England going to miss Stokes at Lords?
Yeah, I think they're going to miss him a lot. I think, yes, he did bowl very well. England will miss him tremendously because Ben Stokes has created this brand around himself where even with the bat, he can be dangerous, although he hasn't done that much of late. But yes, I mean, look, all-rounders are hard. Class all-rounders are hard to come by, right? And you're not going to have a Callis again that easily. But I think if Ben Stokes can contribute with even the bat or the ball as a full-time player in either game, in any game, I think I would have him in the 11. I also just want to say, I think, yes, he bowled well, but it was very interesting for me. I don't know if you guys picked this up, but the ball to Kohli, in my opinion, was not a great delivery. It was a lapse of concentration from Kohli, almost like thinking that, yes, I can now see Pandya is blocking and playing well. This is the time for me to. I think it was just a lapse of concentration for literally that one split second, and that actually got him out.
Yeah, but also in the first innings, he completely had Rahane's number and he completed his DK as well. So, I mean, he kind of drove home the nail that Sam Curran had started putting into the Indian coffin almost. So, yeah, I think he's a big loss for the England team. Can I just ask you guys another question, actually? David Malan, he's been dropped from the squad. What are your thoughts about that?
Has he really? I must have completely missed that. I didn't.
He's been removed from the English squad. He's
My
gone.
goodness.
There's a 20-year-old called Pope who's been brought in instead for the second test.
I mean, my quick reaction to that is it's very interesting, right? Like Alistair Cook batted worse than him. I don't think. I think actually maybe Alistair Cook was the only one who batted worse than him. Stokes didn't have a great outing with the bat. Butler batted worse than him. So it obviously is not just to do with his batting, right? I think maybe he was on the fringes anyway, but it's obviously a lot to do with the fielding and the confidence that goes around with the fielding. So I'm disappointed to see a guy dropped from the squad after just one game. I actually thought he had some potential. We talked about him before on the show, so I'm disappointed. That's actually a surprise to me.
Yeah, so just on that, I mean, I think maybe we should talk a little about slip fielding because Malan's gone, who dropped all the catches for England, and we think Dhawan's going to be gone, who dropped all the catches for India, right? So, what is ailing these two teams? That Alistair Cook dropped an absolute setter in the first innings as well of Pandya. So, I mean, what's going on with the slip catching, guys?
Yeah, I didn't see the game, but I didn't see the drop catches, unfortunately. But I think even in the South Africa series, even in other games that we're seeing, I think the quality generally of slip catching is going down. I'm not sure. I think it is an art. You need to be technically correct to be able to stand in the slips. And I think India today doesn't have anyone, probably except for Rahane. I mean, I'm shocked that Dhawan is the guy standing in slips who seems to be more interested in slapping his thigh rather than taking the catch. So, I mean, literally, I feel scared that the ball is coming into his hand and he'll slap his thigh before he's even caught it. Like that seems to be more important. So. I don't know if that answers the question, but I just had to say that.
Yeah, and Pujara will actually replace, if he does replace Dhawan, Pujara is actually a good slip fielder to these guys, to the fast bowlers especially. So maybe that will help our slip catching percentage, which is apparently the worst amongst the test teams.
So just before we wrap up, final thought from me, or final question from me. We talked about slips, we talked about the batting, we talked about the fielding. We didn't talk about the wicket keeping. And Dinesh Karthik was maybe average at best. And you guys have both come on the show before and said, hey, we think Rishabh Pant deserves a spot in the 11. But neither of you said you think he'll get it at Lords. Why is that? DJ, let's start with you.
I think DK was competent. He dropped a catch, I think, of Sam Curran at the end of first day, which is disheartening. But he took a catch, I think, 2 runs later. So DK, the ball was swinging around. He was competent. I wouldn't say he had an outstanding game, but I think it would be harsh to drop him on that evidence. And he battled quite hard on day 3 with the bat. It was disappointing for him to get out on day 4 in the first innings, for first over of the day. But he's a fighter, and I mean that's the kind of cricketer I'd like to see in the Indian cricket team. He doesn't give his wicket away easily, and he fights it out and he guts it out. And I mean, you want to see him trying hard, and you want to see the Indian team trying hard, visibly. It's, as Varun said, grit and determination. You want to see that, and DK for me personifies that.
Varun, anything to add or anything different?
No, I think I agree with that. I think, like I said, I want to see DK do well, and I think he deserves the chance. But in the keeping a slightly longer term view in mind, I think we can discuss it in the future sometime. But I think Rishabh Pant and Prithvi Shaw need to come into this 11 very, very soon.
Got it. So that's crystal clear. You heard it here. We are expecting 1 change to the Indian 11 for Lords. I'm personally expecting 2, but we'll see how that goes. And obviously there'll be at least 2 changes to the British side with David Malan missing out and Ben Stokes busy with his trial. That's it for our show this week. We're a little bit over our time. Do check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere at One Tip One Hand is our handle. Also, like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can get the Edges and Sledges podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. You can now even ask any of your smart devices to just play Edges and Sledges, the podcast, and we should start playing in your living room. So, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the second test match at Lords, and we will see you next week.
Mic drop, over and out.